So fingers crossed we're all okay today. Right, okay, we've got this beautiful, beautiful horse eye. Absolutely stunning. In the first half, what my plan is to get this eye complete. Then we'll have a break and we can have a chat and a cup of tea, ask any more questions if you want to, and then the second half we'll do the rest. We'll see how it goes. You never can tell with art. It's not something you can prescribe time-wise, is it really? Right, first thing we're going to do is get that catch light in the eye. So we're just going to use a pencil and do that. You can use a soft pastel to do this if you want to, absolutely fine. So I'm just going to put that in. And I'm just going to put a little bit of white around it because it's a bit lighter. So I'm using the edge of the pencil for that. And just putting a tiny bit of pastel on there. I'm literally just tickling the paper with that. And down this side as well, I'm just going to tickle some white on the paper. Like that. Then I'm going to get the blue, so that's the dark 22. And we're going to start underneath the eyelashes. So, now you need to find the very edge of your pastel and touch it on the paper, and then you can bring it across. Now, finding the edge of your pastel when you're new to using sticks can be quite tricky, so what you can do is just bend your head around the side so you can actually see where it's touching the paper. Then we can come across, and that really is quite an intense blue, so we want all of that to be blue. Come across the top of the catch light. And across here. Now as I come down here, I'm not going to press as hard on the paper because it's a little bit lighter as you come here. Just here it's a little bit lighter, so I'm not pressing as hard. It's better to put less pastel on to start with, because you can always add more. And you can take it off, but you know, it's easier to just start with less and then you can always add more. And then we've got the eye, the pupil, which is black in real life, but there's so much reflection going on in here that it's blue in this case. Well, blue and a little bit of black in that corner. There. I'm just going to come right across. There. Okay, I'm just going to get my black. I've got the tiniest bit of Faber-Castell black here. It's very tiny, but can still be used. So I'm just making that pupil darker on this side. So although I'm adding black, really I'm mixing the blue with the black just to make a darker blue. And I've got my rubber blender here. I'm just going to push that into the paper and just spread it about so I'm filling the tooth everywhere. And likewise I'm going to go up here and put some black up there because that corner is so dark. Like that. And then I'm just spreading the pastel about and filling the tooth where I can see it needs to be filled. The good thing about a rubber blender is that it pushes the pastel into the paper. If you want to move the pastel about, you need a tortillon, and that just it just disturbs the pastel and allows you to move it around better. Okay, I'm just going to get that dark 20, the purple colour, and just add a little bit of that across there. I'm not going across here because that's really dark. There we go, just a small amount. And then just blend that across. Then I'm going to just graduate it across here to the catch light. Then we're going to add a little bit more of the purple, just a very small amount, because we do not want this bit to be bright. We want, we don't want this to be opaque. We're going to mix other colours with this to make it brighter. So we need the R15, that's your stunning magenta colour. If you've got a new edge, it can be tricky to get the pastel to work, and you have to just use a tiny bit of sandpaper to lift that off. Okay, so that was just a tiny amount. Now I'm going to mix those colours just by doing little circular movements with the blender. This blender is the rubber blender. Just spreading that about to mix the colours, and then I'm going to add some white. Just to lighten that up. Actually no, I'm not going to use white, I'm going to use this. This is the Old Rose Dark. It's such a gorgeous pencil. I'm going to put that in as well. I'm literally just tickling the paper again, so barely touching it, and then I'll add some white just to bring that up, and again tickling it, so I'm just putting a tiny amount on the paper like that, and then blend that through, and then we've made that lovely colour. So we could have used a pastel, just that colour, to create this, but it's often nicer to build the pastel colours to create your colours, and it's really worth playing around with your pastels and seeing what colours you can create by layering them on top of each other. Now as we come down to this part of the reflection, it's lighter, so I'm adding more white in little circular movements, and I'm not pressing hard at all. back to my dark 22, add a little bit more coming across here. I'm just blending all of that together. And then we're into the catch light. But don't go right into the centre of the catch light, because you'll tint your brightest white. So clean off your soft tool. So these rubber blenders come in various different sizes, and this one is a Royal Sovereign Limited UK, size 0, and I find it really useful. I did buy some cheaper ones from eBay, and I do find out they work and they're great, and they're built for a price, but they are, you can see here, look, that one used to be the same size as that. You see the difference? So it really was worth buying the quality blender, because it's lasted a lot longer than the cheap one. But obviously if you're new to pastel, then it's definitely worth buying cheap ones just to see if you like what you're doing. Right, I've got the blue Faber-Castell 157. It's called Indigo, and it's a lovely, lovely darkest blue pencil that I've found so far in all the pencil ranges. And I'm just coming down the edge of this part here just to make that darker, and as I come down I'm going thinner, much thinner, like that. So quite thick at the top and then coming down thin. So as I come down thin, I'm just literally just touching the paper to get the pigment on, because if I press harder I'm going to get a thicker line. And then I would use, I think, actually no, we're going to put a little bit of this blue on, but we're going to mix it with the other blue. So I'm just pushing that in at a diagonal line, because that's how it looks on the photo. It looks like there's little diagonal lines and they're kind of textured. So just using the pencil in that way. And now I've got the 430 Carbocello. Now this pencil is in a chisel shape, but you really don't need it in a chisel shape for this. That's just the way it is at the moment. And I'm doing little circles up here. I'm not pressing very hard again. Mix that with the indigo again from the top. And then with the blender, it's wonderful that so many of you have managed to join me live from all over the world, so that's really fantastic. I know it's really late or really early for some of you as well. Okay, now I'm just blending that line to make it more solid. I'm not moving it about, just pushing it into the paper. And now I'm looking to see whether I've got it the right tone. So is it light enough or dark enough? And so I'm just putting some white over the top of my blue just to get the right tone. And I'm doing these little diagonal lines again to give me texture as well. Just need a little bit more blue over the top. And a bit of that darker blue, the Carbothello 400. Just tickling over the top to get a very light layer. Can you hear the noise that my pencil is making? And that tells you that you're tickling the paper, that noise. That a little scratchy sound. Okay, next bit we're going to go back over here and we've got these reflections. Don't quite know what these reflections are, but I think it's best that we don't know, and then we just stick to the shapes that we're making. And we've got some lines coming down here. Now notice that one is straight down there and this one is arched. That's really important that you get those arches in, because all of that helps to determine that this is a 3D eye. See, that one as well has come down, and then underneath here we've got coming down like this. I mean, it's probably windows that we can see, and then it's coming down around here, something like that. It's a bit tricky to really see what's going on, but it's sort of like that. And if you get those lines in, you'll be recreating the 3D effect. And then we're going to tick all the paper down. Oh, just add those lines going across. Can you see how they are also curved like that? And then it curves, and they're different curves to the bottom. And that one, I don't think we can really see that one at all, so we'll leave that one out, and then we'll tickle the paper in small circles again. And then we'll add some blue in there. So I've got the 400 blue. I'm just looking for where it's darker on the photo reference and just tickling the paper again. And as you tickle, the pastel will mix with the light, with the white. There we go. And we'll get we want the Payne's Grey 770 Carbothello. It's a dark purple colour. I'm just going to tickle some of that on to make it darker as we go towards the bottom. Tiniest amount of pastel there. And now I can add a little bit more white. There we go. And then down here we've got a little bit of the same colour as these windows, and so we're just going to put that on the bottom. There. Okay. So next pastel stick is our RE17, and I'm going to, oh hang on, just going to bring that up. This is the dark 22. I'm just going to bring that up to there. Like that. Let's check I've got my shapes correct. I'm just going to bring a bit of that dark 22 across here, like that. Then we can do the RE17 and get some of that in the eye. Gorgeous, gorgeous colour. So we're just looking for some shapes now. Seeing where this brown goes. It's like a rusty brown colour, RE17. And then we've got coming under here as well. So we can manipulate this pastel with either with the Tortillon or the rubber blender. So you don't have to go right up to the edge. If you're worried about going over the edge, then just don't go up to the edge, and we can get the Tortillon in a minute to blend it about. I'm just going to put a bit of the RE6 down here because we've got some lines. Well, it looks like lines, but they are just reflections running across here. The thing with doing an eye like this, as you're doing it, it really doesn't make a lot of sense, and you have to just get there and finish it and then step back, and then you see the realism. So at the moment it's just a bunch of shapes. Let's put a bit of the dark 2 in. It's pretty dark brown. Add that over the top of our, what was it, RE17, that rust colour. Come across here. And then we're going to come down at angles like this. Okay. Now I'm going to add a bit of blue in there as well. So the way I work out which colours to use is by just looking at the photo reference and deciding, well, is it blue or is it brown or is it both? So then I pick out the brown, put that on, and then you can assess, does it need to go bluer or does it need to go browner? And because you're doing it in such light layers, you can get away, especially on the pastel mat. If you're using different paper, it's a bit harder. Some papers it's impossible to layer, to the extent you can on pastel mat anyway. So that is why I like to use pastel mat, because you can layer. You can do probably up to like 20 layers on pastel mat. It's such a good paper to to enable you to layer up. So I'm just dragging the pastel out now. In fact, I'm going to use the tortillon blender. I've just cleaned it off on my sandpaper. I'm just going to blend this about so I can get up to the edges, get some nice neat edges going on. You really don't have to do this in any specific order. It's really up to you how you do it. So don't feel like there's a specific order to anything. I mean, I'm doing this eye first. I know other artists would do all of this first. So it doesn't, there isn't a prescribed way that you must do it. It's really down to you, and at the end of the day, art is to be enjoyed, and you doing it your way is all part of that, because that's what makes you the individual. So this blender is really a good blender. It helps you move the pastel about, and you can also lift it and place it in other places, like between there. I'm adding it in there. Okay. Now in between these sections we've got, just get rid of the dust, this is a camera lens dust blower, and it just lets you blow the pastel down to the bottom of your easel. Because I work vertically, I can do that. If you use these and you're working flat, you should make sure you either take it outside or very gently blow it away from you. You don't want lots of pastel dust in the air. So I'm again tickling the paper with the white here and putting in these lighter sections. Now they're not white, they are bluish brownish again. Just bear with me a sec. I've got the sun streaming in the window here, and it's getting really hot. Right, that's better. Okay. So you can see how I can get pencil over the top of our soft pastels because I've used them so lightly. So these lines that are coming down, the lighter sections, are at angles. They're not just coming straight down the page like this, they're going at angles. And you need that, again, to help with the 3D effect. And you could even have put these on first. Didn't need to put them on after. Either way will work for you. Just put some darker on. I've got the dark too. I'm just coming down. There we go. I'll just push this one in. That goes up over there. I'm just neatening up all the edges with this blender. And we've got a lot of lash reflection coming down and across this eye, so there's a lot of things we haven't got on here yet. And these striations that we've got running across and down like this, they are open to interpretation. You don't have to get them exactly right. As long as you've got them curved and they give the impression of a reflection, then you're going to be okay. So I've got my Payne's grey now. I'm just going in between and darkening the shadow areas. And this bit I'm just adding some purple in it because I can see purple in it as well. Back to my blue. There it is. Just neatening up these edges as well. So the pencil will act like a blender as well, so you can put the pencil pigment on there, but also you'll be putting the moving the soft pastel about as well. So I'm going to clean my blender off. I've got a little wet cloth here just to clean the blender off, and then I dry it. Very important to dry it, and then you can go into your white. Just check it's clean first. Just blend that out So we want in the middle to be the brightest, and then around the edge it's getting less bright. I'm going to add some of the 430 Carbocello in there, make that a bit brighter. And I'm again tickling the paper with it because I'm going to shape it with my blender in a moment, because I want that to mix with the pastel stick that we put on the blue. Then if you feel you've got a bit too much blue on your blender, just give it a wipe, and then you can manipulate the pastel as you need to. Put some more blue on. Just blending that across as you see fit. Another thing to bear in mind is that if you've printed this out, your printer will have printed different colours to what I can see on my printer. It depends what paper you've printed it out on. The difference between printing on good quality printer paper and printing on cheap paper is huge. And the clarity that you get on good paper is just unbelievable when you compare it to the cheap printer paper that you can buy. Also, your computer monitor or your iPad monitor will be showing different colours as well, just because all screens are set up differently. So this is why, as you grow as an artist, you suddenly realise that you don't need to get the exact colours, because everybody sees colour differently anyway, and there's the variation in your screens and the printer papers and what you see as colour. What's more important are the tones. So how dark is it, how light is it? Just keep intensifying this until I've got it the right intensity as we come out here. It's almost like a star shape. But I won't add that. I don't think that will add anything if I do a star shape. Yeah, so Sarah is saying she gets a photo from Photobox, and so their colours will be different again. They'll probably be more realistic to the photo reference with a professional print. So I'm just blending this in and pushing it into the paper, getting a more gradual colour change from the blue to the white. There. Got to be careful here. I've got a rag that's got bright red pastel on it from when we were doing poppies, so I just need to get rid of that before I get red everywhere. Okay, let's blend this in. and look at the colours I've got here, see what I need to do, because it's not one flat colour. So I'm going to add some of the dark 22 at the top. Try and get a nice line across there. You could do that with the pencil as well. I just wanted to have a little bit of a glazing of and texture of the soft pastel before I use a pencil, and see where I get with that. And then if I need to, I'll get some detail with the pencil in a moment. So that's added some nice texture that I'm just pushing into the paper there. And then I'll get my blue, wherever it's gone. There it is. Just make that a nice neat line under the edge. Coming down here and round. So a good nice neat edge on the outer side, and now on the inside I'm just blending that down a little bit to soften it. So it's all about attention to detail, being able to see what you need to paint. And again, as you grow as an artist, you will learn to see things much more clearly and learn to see colours better. And you'll start seeing greys and purples in the shadows when you're out on the street, when you're walking, and especially if you look at the pavement and there's bright sunshine, and you'll see the shadows. If you look at those shadows, you'll see that they are not just grey, they are purples and greens, and whatever the colour of the pavement is that you're walking on, they are a darker version of that. So usually pavements are not just grey, there's variations of grey and purple in them. So therefore when you get a shadow, you get just a darker version of that pavement, not just grey. Okay, getting there. Just going to add some of this 680 Carbothello in here, just to lighten it up along the edge. And then give that a blend. So we're just going round, really just neatening up all these edges and making sure we've got everything in the right place to make it a convincing 3D eye. So I've got my Faber-Castell 175, it's a very dark sepia. Just making it very dark under here. These strange shapes that we've got going on here. Sarah, Pam is asking you a question in the chat. I'm just going to bring my window down a little bit more, so a bit of white, a bit of blue, and a bit of the Payne's grey. Okay, just need to blend that. In fact, I'm just going to take that a bit lighter with our RE9. Just bring some lines up like that. Because when we get our shadows on there of the eyelashes, we'll be able to see lightness underneath. And across here as well, we're going to be, this is all going to be sort of almost in the background, because we'll have the shadows on top. So I'm just going to create a bit of variation in the colours going on in here. Use the 675 Carbothello. Like that. The white. Just make some of these sections a bit brighter. So we're not going to put the reflections on until the end. So this bottom bit here is going to look a bit strange until we get those dark, sorry, the shadows. I'm not putting the shadows on until the end. So it's going to look a tad strange until we get those on. Looks a bit like a grid at the moment, but it will soon change. Keep putting my blue down and then I can't find it. Very annoying. So, it's going to add some darks into here. Just as there. And then darks up here if they're needed. Around the edge. Just kind of playing with it just to see where they're needed. A little bit more here, a little bit more there. It's not really something you can prescribe. You're just going around checking where you are on these. Okay. Right. Now, starting to get to this part of the eye, which is going to really start giving us that 3D effect. So I get the white and run right round the edge. So this is the very edge of the eye, the eyeball. Yep, Machiko, I can do that. I'll do that at the end of when we do a break. I'll just before the end I'll show you that. And there's an extra bit of window in there. Add that in. Extra bit of reflection going on there and there. And then we'll get our blue again. This is the 430 blue. Just going to put that over the top of the white very lightly, like that. Now this part of the eye is a mixture of black and blue, I think. Yeah, probably a bit of purple in there as well. So just get my small black, put some stick in there. And a bit of the blue. We'll probably have to bring this bit of the blue out a bit further as well. So now we've got some pastel on there to manipulate. Actually, I'll put the pastel in there as well. So we can manipulate that with our blender. Make sure it's cleanish. And then you can move it about like this. Really good for moving the pastel about. And then as I'm getting finer detail, I'll go back to my pencils. And yeah, we need to bring that out a bit longer, a bit further over. And we use a rubber blender to start blending this together. Now some circles to push that pastel out. I might need to get a tortillon for that. These tortillons come in different sizes. I was just sanding it there on a piece of 100 grit sandpaper just to clean it off. Sometimes you need to use a smaller one. And these come in sets, so you can buy a set quite cheaply, something like £2 or something. Sometimes they come with a little emery board, and that's how you clean them. Put some black in there. This is so small, I might have to just resort to my pencil. A bit too small, and when I'm filming it can be quite difficult to get the right angle on the pastel, so usually I'd be right over the other side of the camera doing that bit, but that wouldn't work and you wouldn't be able to see what I was doing. just blending into that highlight there, so it's not just a rectangular blob. I'll make this a bit darker in here. That's quite a defined line coming across there, so make that nice and crisp. And then as it comes down, it's not so crisp and it's more blended, so I do some little circles to blend it. And dark under here. So I'm having to press really hard with the pencil now, which is more a stick for a job for a stick, but you can get more accuracy with a pencil. Okay, so back to the rubber blender and then push that into the paper. So when I'm pushing it into the paper, I am not pressing really hard, and really I'm just filling in any gaps that have appeared. And the more you push the pastel into the paper, the duller it gets. So just really just twiddling it and filling in the gaps rather than really pushing it in. But if you do push it in, obviously you can add more layers as well. Yes, and you definitely can play it at a sort of slower pace later on, trying not to go too fast. Okay, we need to get this line here a bit bluer and a bit smoother, so more pastel. So if your pastel doesn't blend on your paper, it's likely that you haven't got enough on there. So that's better. I think I'm just going to get rid of that highlight for the moment. Just concentrate on getting this reflection really nice and crisp. I think possibly the best way to do this with the video is to play a section maybe a couple of times and then have a go at doing it, and then you can rewind and play again as you need whilst you're doing it. So we're just going to make that darker at the top because it's going to have a lot of lashes over the top. I'll just blend that into the paper. And very dark across here. Right, and we'll come down here. This is all black all the way down the side of the eye. Across the top. push that in, move it about, just fill the tooth there, or rather just so we don't see the paper underneath, it's not filling the tooth. Got many more layers for that. Yeah, I think if I was you and watching and trying to paint, I don't think I could keep up either. I really, yeah, just don't worry if you can't keep up. I feel like I am going fairly slowly, but I know that's obviously because I have practiced. So yeah, just use the video replay as you need, and you can slow it down, speed it up. And I'm also going to give you a time-lapse version as well, so you get the overall impression of what you're trying to create. So I think that can be helpful. So not worrying about what I'm doing in the time-lapse, but getting the overall impression of what is happening in the time-lapse. So it'll be quite it won't be a mega speed time-lapse, it'll be something like 20 to 30 minutes. Because I think we all work in different ways, and some people need different things to other people. So I often find a time-lapse quite helpful to get the overall view of what's happening. And when I'm watching something real time, I find that a bit harder. Whereas I know a lot of people are complete opposite to that and hate the time-lapse and would rather have the slow version. So just I put a very dark brown in there. That was the 175. That's great, Janice and Barbara. Put a little bit of this in here. It's not this brown, this is the dark 2. Then we've got a little flash of light going on here, so I'm using the Old Rose Dark, the Cretacolor one, if you've got that, but it's a very light lilac purple. So it's got a bit of a pinkish in it as well. There we go, and the next bit is dark brown. It's not this colour, but I'm just putting this underneath to give me a base, and then I'll mix my pencil on top. Just spreading that pastel about. You see I've done this Old Rose Violet in there as quite thick, but that's okay because we can just come in from both sides and just make it as thin as we want it to be, very gradually. Just graduating it at the top there. I'll just run my finger, that's a clean finger, across there, and it helps to just blend it at the top. I think I do need to go a bit thinner as well. There, and at the top you've got a bit of reflection going on the other way like that. Okay, right, we're going to go, where should we go? Down here. So at this point you could come along and do this, you could do this, you could do that. There is no right or wrong way to do this. before I do that, I am just going to put the blue, make it run all the way under there. Then we've got blue coming across here. There. So if you're getting lost in all these lines, just stop and attack it from a different angle, and then you'll find that you meet up in the middle where you were lost. Because it can be confusing with there's so many different layers and lines that you can get lost, as I frequently do. I've not done a zebra yet. There's a good reason for that. I know I'd end up doing 2 black stripes in the same place. Right, so back to the blue, the indigo blue. Just going to join all this up under here, there. And then this bit of reflection under here has got a bit of brown in it. So I'm just going to add that. So I am tucking right down under the camera now, just so I can see underneath the eye and see where I'm touching the paper. That's quite a delicate line. Now I've just gone over my blue, so I'm just going to gently blow that. Because it's soft pastel, you can do that because I've not rubbed it into the paper. So it will just be sitting on the surface and you're able to just blow it off. Right, just going to blend that a bit more. Little circles just to blend that into the blue, the darker blue, a little bit more. See, it's not blending, which just means I don't have enough pastel on there. I'm not going to use the stick because I know that that will be just too much. Just want to make that line a little bit more fuzzy rather than nice and can't think of the word. Nice and crisp, that's the word. There we go, it's going fuzzy now. That's better. Yes, Selena, I sent you everybody an email about sketching the horse eye out first. I hope everybody got that. It's the trouble with email, you never know whether it arrives or not. Just putting a bit of that highlight back in. I'll just tone it down very slightly just to get the same tone in the photo. So when I put that highlight on, it really stood out to me, so I thought, well, it needs to be toned back because the brightest highlight is this one, which I will be making brighter. It probably looks as bright as it can be on your screen, but to me it's not too bright at all. Let's fan out the edges. Okay. Right. Just going to put some blue at the top of the eye now. So, come across there. And also going to bring this right up, because underneath those lovely lashes there's a lot of skin that we can't really see. And we can use the A22 in here. And that will be all around here as well. And notice how that fur, it comes down around and then loops out. And then some of this we're going to put around here, under there. We'll be mixing that with lots of other colours too. Just going to run that across, smooth that out. And put some black in there as well. And I'm going to put some purple in there. Always good so you think of another colour to use other than black. It really livens up what you're doing. Just put that other shape in. And there, the other part of the eyelid coming down there. I'll blend that into the paper. So if you've put too much pastel on in some places, this is a good way to spread it about. If you're worried that you've got not enough tooth, these blenders are good for spreading pastel about and creating more tooth. So I'm just going to blend these two colours together now to create that, the top there. You see how much I can just keep dragging it out? Yes, Selena, you sketch your outline first, or use the grid that was in the PDF, or trace, or whatever you usually do. Do your outline first. Exactly like you did for Bailey. So I've got quite a lot of dust there now because I've just done all that blending with the tortillon. And I'm going to come down here with our dark 20, get a line going across there. I use the bit I broke off, it's a lot easier to use in this instance. And I'll blend this about, just spreading that pastel about. A really dark shadow across here. If you look at things in isolation when you're doing realism, they don't always look real. And this shadow here doesn't look real, and you just have to step back and look at it. So this line up here, it's the same colour, this Payne's Grey that I'm using, 770. You need to, I'm using the pencil because I need to be accurate on this line. Bit of black to make it darker. And then I'm going to use some circular motions because I want a very light coating of this. Let's bring that crease down there. So very lightly tickling the paper there. And then I can add my white to create a grey. And no doubt I'll add my Payne's Grey into that to make it more interesting. Payne's grey. Just noticing where the tone is a little bit darker. So I'm just using small circles to just move the pastel about. And I can even see a bit of blue in there, so I'm just going to add this blue, which is 430. So you see how the colour gets built up by just thinking, well, it's a bit greyish, but I can see a bit of purple and a bit of blue, so then you just add those colours in. And it does take time to be able to do that, but that is the logic that I use to work out what colours I need. So you just need to practice that to be able to find the right colours. So as I'm coming along here, it's a bit darker in that section, so I'm going to add a bit of blue. If you really struggle with colour, there's an app you can get for your tablet or your phone. It's called Colour Picker. I do believe it's available for both Android and Apple, and it allows you to just take a photo and you click on the colour within the photo that you want to work out what it is, and it tells you what colour it is, or it isolates that colour, and then you can see what it is. Right, we're going to do the inside of that eye, and then I think we'll stop for a break. So we've got a lot of pink in there, so we're using our R15. And that's a fresh edge there, so it doesn't always work. You can feel a fresh edge. It feels really, really hard, whereas an edge that you can use is quite soft. And if you've got hard edge all the way around, just wipe it on some sandpaper gently and it will just break the edge. So we've got a little bit of veins that we can see, so we're putting in there. And we want to spread that about. Clean tortillon. And then we want this pink highlight. So all this section here is really in the dark, and then we've got a pink highlight. So I'm using a creamish colour. Again, just tickling the paper with it. And a bit of the Old Rose Dark. And a bit of the magenta. Now you can do this with your pastel sticks. You can just wipe them on like that. Really useful for getting in really tight spots. I'm actually going to spread this about because under this bit is the rust colour that we used in the eye, but you can also see pink underneath, so I'm just going to spread that about. so you can just see it coming through. And I think it would be really nice to use the texture of the pastel stick in this section. It's totally suited for it. Just touching it on the paper here and there. There's a bit that's gone into the shadow. And then we just need to get a bit lighter on the outside here. A little bit lighter in there. Then I'll push it into the paper with my rubber blender. And then within that there's some more intense darker areas, so just going to use this. It's the 175 sepia. Just dotting it about here and there just to give a bit of strength to some of those sections. Let's see if that one, yeah, that's going to have the opposite effect. So this is slightly lighter, this pencil. This is 675, and it's doing the opposite thing, so we're going lighter in areas. There. I'm just going to get the blue, which is the 400, and just scumble that over the top, little circles, just to make that magenta colour a little bit darker. Just try a bit of the brown as well. Tiny, tiny circles. Look for where it's darkest. There we go. Right, so just before we end, I'll just show you the board.